Final question, I think, then. Lizzie Steele, have you ever seen a politician cry? This is an interesting question. I mean, yes. Theresa May, when she left office. Margaret Thatcher, when she left office. Neil Kinnock. David Cameron, I think I've seen David Cameron cry. Who else have you seen cry?
Well, you've sort of run through the sort of public examples that one can think of. I suppose is Lizzie asking the question because she thinks we should, we need to see more politicians cry? Does she think crying is that we should see more? Is it because we don't see honest emotions from British politicians enough?
Well, Theresa May was kind of quite widely criticised for crying. Do you remember that? Have I misremembered that? I think there was quite a lot of.
I thought it was a good. She was a very buttoned up person, and actually, when she cried, I have to say, I thought it. I mean, it was touching and humanising. So, if she was criticised, I think that's sad, actually.
It was a bit like, do you remember when Gordon Brown left office and he came out with Sarah and his two boys, and he'd been so sort of careful to protect his family from the public glare, and it was an extraordinarily emotional day. I thought it was sort of, here was a guy who, whether you liked his politics or didn't like his politics, or liked him or didn't like him, had done his best. I think most people view him as an essentially decent man. Maybe some people would argue with that, but I think even people who didn't like him had some sort of respect for him. I don't know. Seeing more of the human side of politicians wouldn't hurt, I'd say.
No, I rather agree with that. I mean, if you spend your life with it, which I do, calling on politicians to be less frightened of speaking the truth and trying to persuade them that actually it's in their political interest to speak the truth, because I do think the big driver of disillusionment with politics in general is that British people think that none of them can be trusted. A corollary of, answering questions that you and I put to them honestly is also just show us how you feel. So if we all feel horrified by some of the images that we watch about, some of the appalling events going on in the world, and one of the things that is hard if you do our job is to internalize stress, and seeing whether it was pictures of people murdered on October the 7th, or pictures of civilians killed by the Israeli Defense Force, children, women, civilians in Gaza. These are profoundly upsetting images. We, when we broadcast about them, have to do so in a professional way. And so we know the stress that there is of internalizing emotions. And a bit more, certainly from our politicians, I think a bit more freedom for them to express how they feel would be a good thing.
The final thought is, it makes me think that I've only seen one politician leave power voluntarily in my lifetime, Tony Blair. And now I come to...
Well, only semi-voluntarily.
Semi-voluntarily.
It wasn't as though there wasn't a 10-year campaign by his closest ally to get rid of him. But anyway.
But that was a weird event as well, wasn't it? Because on the one hand, two of the best speeches, just in terms of performance, I've ever seen given were his last speech to the party conference, which you will remember, and his last speech to his constituency, Sedgefield, which you will also remember. Both incredibly brilliant speeches, very emotional. It was almost like the party wondering, was it a good idea to get rid of you? But and he sort of held himself together, but the kind of suppressed emotion was there the whole way through, and it kind of made it an intriguing thing. Anyway, it just reminds you that, there is just a lot of drama in politics.